So, guys, today, how are you? Today, my guest is Ger Flanagan, and he's the founder of Acquired Digital, helping frustrated agency owners find and book calls via LinkedIn. So, I'm very excited to catch him today. He says he's open book in the sense that he'll tell you how he's doing it. So, a very powerful guest to have on today. LinkedIn seems to be blowing up at the moment, and Ger's ahead of the game. So, Ger, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background and then how you got in to starting Acquired Digital?
Yeah, thanks, Paul, and great to be on. You're doing a great job promoting the west of Ireland here as well. Fair play to you. But yeah, I suppose where my career started, coincidentally, it's been kind of a nice evolution of skills. Started professionally as a journalist, did my undergrad in journalism in the University of Limerick, and then started working with the Mayo News that are based out in Westport. 4 or 5 years there as a kind of sports and news journalist. Loved it, really exciting job. Literally something new every single day, so it was really exciting. But I always kind of knew that I didn't want to stay, I suppose, in journalism all my life. The industry was changing significantly and probably wasn't heading in a direction that I wanted to be in. So went back then, always had an idea of marketing, as you know yourself. I think if you're a journalist and you're a writer, a lot of those skills actually apply to being a marketer too. So did a master's in digital marketing in GMIT in Castlebar during COVID, actually coincidentally, so timed really well in terms of actually studying part-time and working full-time. On the back of that then started working with Intersport Elveries, and a lot of your Irish listeners will be aware of them. They're the biggest sports retailer in Ireland, worked in SEO and content, and then I suppose trying to aspire to bigger things again, if you like. I always wanted to go and set up my own business, or just at least have a go, yourself, have a go at something, creating something. I felt that I would have never been satisfied professionally if I didn't at least try it, and say I gave it a go and whatnot. Ventured into kind of LinkedIn ghostwriting. A friend of mine had been doing it previously, so kind of worked under him, learned under him. Did it part-time, kind of had a couple of clients on the go when I was working with Elveries, so I was trying to balance that, and then it got to the stage where I was getting a bit more comfortable in what I was doing. I had a good level of inbound leads coming and the business was coming, so I just kind of had a case of the feckets one day, and I said, right, I'll go and try and start my own business. It actually coincided with me having a kid as well.
Fantastic.
I think I set up my business and went working for myself about when my son was nearly a year old. So that, yeah.
And when was this, Ger? So when did you actually set up, or so I guess, veer into it more properly?
Yeah, so I was my son was born in July 2023, and I had probably the previous March I had started doing it in part-time. And then the kind of year had flown by, and before my son was born I kind of was ready to do it, and then he was born, and you're looking for a bit of you need something that's a bit solid, and you don't want to take any risks, and then that settles down and you get into the reality of being a dad, and then your aspirations change and your intentions change, and suddenly this little fella becomes your whole life, and you're kind of like, right, I need to maybe do something a lot better here.
Indeed.
And it wasn't. I don't mean to sound like what I wasn't doing was good, but you know yourself. Last July I started the business then.
Okay, so it's been quite the year. Okay, so before I delve in too much into kind of what you're doing today, I nearly want to bring you back because you mentioned a few things there I'm curious about. So I get asked a lot, like, I can't believe now I'm the age I'm at, but marketing in sense of a career has, I feel, a bit of a kind of a romantic grasp. People kind of like the idea of graphic design and design, advertising, marketing, it's kind of glamorized a little bit. So even now, a few years on, when you went back to study digital marketing, so you had a good founding of writing, and then you went into digital marketing. And I don't want any negative on the Castlebar, but did you find the course, are you using it? What kind of fundamental tools did they teach you in the course?
Yeah, and something, it's hilarious, because when I did my undergrad in journalism, I remember it was 4 years, and look, it could, really and truly, you could have done it in 2. And I came out of it. Look, I did an A1 work placement with the undergrad, and I worked with the Mayo News, and that's how I got the job. But there was an awful lot of it that was just complete rubbish, and you never apply. But I was actually really pleasantly surprised that I actually was able to apply so much of what I learned from the masters in GMIT straight into my job in Intersport Elveries, and I wasn't fully sure that was going to be the case. The great thing about that course is that it's kind of aimed at like professionals, semi-professionals. A lot of people that were doing it were, people had their own business, people were self-employed, there was, CEOs in it. Okay. So it was actually very practical. Now there's some of it that I wasn't used, but in terms of, we learned the basics of SEO, we learned the basics of marketing funnels, and then some of the theory around marketing itself. Now AI wasn't really a big thing back in 2020. It was coming on the scene, but it was nowhere near as contemporary and as normalized as it is now. So we didn't actually venture into that. So I think that actually would be quite an interesting case study to see how marketing courses have adapted actually to...
Yeah, oh indeed.
Yeah. Because you know yourself, AI is so much part of marketing now.
It really is. And AI, as you said, in the sense of writing, like I fundamentally believe that if you were to boil marketing down, it's word. It's the craftsmanship of words, really, from tweets or TikTok or scripts or complex things like business plans and strategies, or in meetings and how you speak to staff, how you bring together the words to either motivate your team, your business plan, go to a bank and get funding, or you just put out a tweet or put out a brochure. It is all how words come together. And then, we add layers of complexities in terms of branding and advertising and copy and all these kind of aspects of it. But that's why I'm very curious. Did you find your background in journalism was nearly a foundational piece of you becoming a good marketer?
Well, some of the skills that I learned as a journalism and that I practice as a journalist, I still apply them to my work now as a marketer and as a LinkedIn ghostwriter. Storytelling has been around for how many years, thousands of years, and it's still not going away. And the ability to tell a story, a good story, and a very structured story that will actually appeal to your audience. Now, obviously, the audiences that I write for right now in terms of my LinkedIn ghostwriting career are an awful lot different to the audiences that I would have wrote for when I was working with the Mayo News. But ultimately, the principles of actually being able to hook a reader, with whatever psychological trigger that you want that, and then, semi-hook them, then give them value, and then conclude with another almost, hook again. And that's ultimately the structure that I follow in terms of me writing on LinkedIn. Very, very similar to journalism and writing for a newspaper, but the volume is an awful lot shorter, and the attention spans are an awful lot shorter too on LinkedIn writing as well. So one thing, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this as well, like someone told me when I started my business that two of the most important skills you'll ever do is copywriting and sales. And ultimately, I think if you could do both, you're onto a real winner. And I never realised the connection between sales and marketing.
Indeed. Oh, well, I would fundamentally agree with that. Yeah, I'd be a big fan of the the words behind what we use. My main kind of mentor that kind of taught me years ago, and he was a brand strategist, and he would have been the head guy in kind of Prada and Saatchi, and he was kind of one of these original Mad Men guys because he's 30 years ahead of us. But so he used to be the 400-man team in New York running an ad agency type level. But he says it all comes down to words. It's just the organization of the words within the company. Is everyone singing off the same hymn sheet? So as you said, the fundamental rules are the same, and we've sort of added complexity to it. But your skill as a strategist is your ability to put down in words what the owner wants to say, what the department is struggling to say, what the customers aren't understanding. Your job is a copywriter. You're the highest level copywriter to, I don't understand anything about this company. You know your company better than me. I'm just better at putting into words what you're trying to tell me. And sometimes, I'm sure you've experienced this as well, when you meet a business owner, they know their service and product, but then there's just that difference of selling, what the product does, but then emotionally connecting it to a customer. And then that's obviously, our job is to kind of create all these hooks. But I do think customers still get sidetracked by Facebook and TikTok and the kind of mediums, as opposed to, it's still just the words you say and how you say it. You have to get the words right. If you do, a tweet can go viral, of course, and it could be 10 perfectly encapsulated words at the right time. So no, I'm a big fan, and yes, just trying to get that words correct. But so you jumped into, so I suppose you kind of answered the question there a while ago, where you kind of knew someone who was doing ghostwriting, Ger, and you kind of got into it that way. Like, how did you find yourself in this very kind of unusual niche?
Yeah, so a friend of mine I used to go to school with, he was a year ahead of me in school, random by chance. Hadn't seen him in a few years, and I knew he went away travelling to Australia. Really, really smart guy. Tried his he was actually an engineer by trade, worked in engineering and went on a kind of entrepreneurial journey of trying to find a few different gigs. And at one stage he was selling containers to large companies in Australia, and then he found a kind of a ghostwriting business. Started out on Twitter and then moved to LinkedIn. But I just randomly bumped into him into a shop in Bal a few years back. Yeah, kind of how are things? What are you up to? I haven't seen you in a while. And then he started telling me about this ghostwriting. I had never heard about ghostwriting before we had this conversation, and I remember leaving the shop after about 5 minutes thinking, Jesus, this sounds exactly like something I could do, so I was kind of hooked from that conversation. And then I kind of left my head for a few months, I got carried away with work and stuff like that, and met him on a stag party then about maybe a few months later over in Liverpool, and got into a deeper conversation after about 10 pints. And he was telling me that he was now setting up this school. So he was venturing from the actual practice of doing the ghostwriting to now coaching it. Yeah, so joined that and was kind of learning with him on the side, basically learning his strategy, learning what works for him. And now he's kind of my coach, my mentor if you like. So that was kind of my first taste into it. But yeah, it was a completely new phenomenon to me.
Fantastic.
I still tell people, like my dad definitely thinks I'm scamming people. He just can't get over or come round to the idea that I'm controlling the LinkedIn pages of other people.
Sure. Yeah, and let's get into that. But that's as Irish. That's hilarious now to bump into someone in Bal, and then have 10 pints in the middle of Liverpool on a stag, and have found your niche calling. But I almost envy that. I had to go the long route now in my entrepreneurial journey of just finding how to bring it all together, and I wore many hats along the journey because so yeah, you're lucky now to just bump into a fella and go, if you've got these background and skills, ghostwriting on LinkedIn, because it's definitely effective. And so to jump into it, Ger, you generate B2B links via LinkedIn for sort of high level, C-suite people or CEOs. How do you do it? How does it work? Can you walk us through a little bit of a step-by-step on how the process works?
Yeah, so it's very, very simple. So the majority of people I work with, probably 75% of my clients are CEOs or presidents of digital marketing agencies, primarily in the United States. So conversion rate optimization, marketing consultants, SEO agencies. Generally, the companies will be between 10 and 50 employees. So all these CEOs are still very hands-on within the business in terms of all the other, the marketing, sales, etc. All want to do LinkedIn, but just don't have the time to possibly do it. So I come in with the solution to be able to control their LinkedIn. And what it looks like, a very basic package for me is that I write their content, I do their engagement, I do their outreach, and I create their kind of lead magnets. And the principle and the idea of it is very simple in B2B. It's all about giving away your tips, giving away your knowledge. The principle of reciprocity ultimately is what you're trying to do. You're trying to share your knowledge, your tips, your advice to your ICP to try and attract them and build up yourself as someone who's trustworthy, knowledgeable, and can ultimately help them solve a problem. And the majority of people I work with are very experienced CEOs. They've been in the game a long time. So they have, an enormous amount of content, an enormous amount of stories, an enormous amount of expertise to give away. And the first part of the strategy is about actually just extracting that from them, getting their, top tips to conversion rate optimization for, B2B SaaS companies, and creating a post about it, then creating a lead magnet around that, and ultimately then creating a newsletter around that. And it's just a matter of actually structuring the different content. The second part of it then is about the outreach and engagement. So you will get leads inbound from seeing your content, but you have to go and get them actively as well. The way the LinkedIn algorithm is gone, about a year ago on LinkedIn, it was, the reach and the potential for organic reach was an awful lot greater, but the algorithm is kind of clamped down now, probably because of the rise of AI, and the ability to produce content is an awful lot easier now for a lot of people. So they're trying to clamp down basically on all the rubbish. So that's why you got to set up the outreach and the lead magnets. You got to kind of create very high personalized lists I use tools like LinkedIn Sales Navigator, Clay, and Apollo. Find people that want to actively buy your product or your service around certain signals, and then set up automated outreach sequences to connect with these people, send them potential lead magnets, and try and start sales conversations. And the key is that you're just trying to build up a relationship with them. Cold outreach is difficult. I wouldn't recommend going, pitch slapping people straight away and trying to sell your product. It does work with email, but with LinkedIn, you got to just be a bit slower in terms of actually nurturing that lead over a course of maybe 30 days, maybe 60 days. And if you can do that consistently with 10 to 20 people and you're going to sign 10 clients in 6 months, then it's an awful lot better than saying, listen, I'll give you 20 leads every single month through email, but they might be low quality ones. So ultimately, that's the
to push in on that, Jerry. Yes, so so it's not to diminish it in the sense. So it's the usual understanding of marketing, like leads and getting kind of people into the content. So because you're dealing with sort of large, complex, well, I'm assuming complex, like the CEO of if companies have 10 to 50 employees, they're pretty large. And when you're creating lead magnets on their behalf, is it tricky to bring together their knowledge in a level of, to not make it too basic? Is it not sometimes at a level of complexity where I don't know, I don't have enough knowledge here, or has AI just stepped in the sense that I'm able to fill the gaps? Or do you interview your clients? How do you bring together this information to a level that if you send it to someone, they don't see it as that's quite a basic lead magnet? I've seen all this stuff before. How do you fight against that?
Yeah, so it's a good question. And what I would say with lead magnets is that over complex lead magnets are nowhere near as good as very short, concise, and not basic lead magnets, but solve a basic problem and show them how to do it. So the idea of a lead magnet is that you present a problem to someone that they have, be it your ICP, you show them how you do it, and then at the end of that, you show them the results of your solution. So it's a way of showing off that your solution works, and you have really good social proof and client testimonials with this particular people. And that's ultimately a huge part of why I work with these particular clients as well, because they do have an awful lot of good social proof, customer testimonials, case studies, all stuff that ultimately is called trust, and trust is what sells and converts. So that's the key to a good lead magnet as well. You do really need to have that social proof. In terms of actually getting it from the CEOs, it can be difficult, I will admit, because they're quite busy. So you have to try and come up with systems that make it very, very easy for them. So I use AI an awful lot in terms of actually generating ideas for them, just to get them thinking, creating workflows for them, and basically handing them the basic proposal of what the lead magnet is. And then I'll just tell them to hop onto a Loom video, go through this kind of step by step, give your experience, give your tips, show examples, and then show your proof. So
so they bring it together for you, but you're trying to make it as simple as, okay, I need 10 minutes of your time. Just answer my questions here as best as you can, and I'll try and do the rest. Is that kind of
correct?
Okay.
Because ultimately, I don't sell the service as you're not going to be needed at all in this. I sell it as, you are going to be needed in some way, because it is ultimately your brand here, and people want to be engaging with you, and they want to see your face, and they want to hear your voice. The key is just actually creating a system that makes it very, very easy for them, where, they can just pop open the Loom video and start creating videos within an hour. And generally, most of my
for any of our sort of listeners, can you just clarify Loom? I feel like
sorry, yeah, Loom is just a video recording software. It's whereby basically it's a screen recording, and it shows a little video of yourself too. So if you're given like tutorials, or you're creating a how-to guide, you can kind of talk as you're displaying and working through the screen. So it's really, really good. Indeed. In terms of actually showing people what you want to do, if you're like coding, or if you're designing an SEO strategy, and they're really simple, easily consumed 10-minute long videos. So the key is just to try and create the system that makes it easy on the CEO to produce the content, because it ultimately has to go to them, because that's going back to the argument that we were talking about. There's so much other content out there right now.
Yeah.
Anyone can pull up in GPT or Claude and create a text-driven lead magnet and say, this is from our CEO, but there's actually no proof that's actually from the CEO.
It's going to get very complex, because of course, yes, like the lead magnet in all intents and purposes would be correct. Obviously if you ask it to give you an SEO strategy, but of course then we're going to get very much quickly into this gap of knowledge versus wisdom or something. I mean, there's one thing in just reading, that's how you do it. I mean, you can even make it step by step if you want, but there still has to be an aspect of, just because it's right there doesn't mean you know how to do it. And it almost gets back to our first, you're a writer, you're a journalist, making money online or building a business is not easy in any capacity, small or large. And so ChatGPT is there, but really you're still going to have to build a business. It's,
yeah,
it gives you everything, but
that's where trust and case studies, I know I said this a few minutes ago, but you cannot beat actually having that proof of working with this particular client, done this particular strategy, and you got this particular results. And that would be part of the content strategy as well. We write case studies for the clients and we put them up on LinkedIn, because you can't, you can't argue with that. That's completely unique to you.
So I guess a lot of this, Ger, is like almost kind of time management. I mean, I guess they're not CEOs by accident, and really, all the information is there, but just they've never had 2 seconds to obviously do any of this stuff, lead magnets, case studies, writing, never mind just handling a LinkedIn every day. So you're kind of, I'm assuming at the start, you go through a content strategy going, okay, I'm going to try and get all this information out of your head. I'll try and not interrupt your day too much, but I do need to work with you, and we will create lead magnets, case studies, and get all the good stuff from your career into kind of a document that I'll handle and share. Is that it kind of?
In a nutshell, and that's where my background as a journalist has been a huge help to me as a ghostwriter, because I'm ultimately interviewing these people and just trying to find the nuggets and trying to find the pain points that their audience are going to actually want to hear, be interested in, and ultimately hopefully be attracted to the profile. So that's definitely, that's been one of the best skills I've ever got as a professional, is actually the ability to hold conversations and interviews. And they love, the majority of them, when you get them talking, they love it. They love, telling interesting stories from their careers, their setbacks, their wins, talking about, some of the common questions that I'd ask a client now. I just say, look, tell me about an interesting conversation you had with a client this week. And then they might sit back and they're like, well, geez, I don't know. I don't think I have anything for you at all. I don't know what to say to you. And then I'll be like, look, open up your calendar there, have a look at your client calls over the past couple of weeks, and just talk to me about what you talked about on that conversation. And then they'll just, they could rattle off some unbelievable stories. So it's just kind of finding ways for them to get that information out.
And then are you trying to take the problems that they're solving and kind of diluting it down into some sort of post or lead magnet in some way?
Yeah, generally so the interviews will primarily be with the content. You could take, he could be talking for 5 minutes about a particular answer, and then my goal then is to try and turn that into a 200-word LinkedIn post. Ultimately, it's all about this, the structure in terms of my LinkedIn post is what I do and the funnel. I suppose, to get a bit nerdy in terms of marketing, it would start at kind of problem aware at the very top of the funnel. This is kind of creating content around trying to talk to people who are in your ICP but don't actually know they have a problem yet. So you're trying to make them aware of a problem that they don't know about. So that ultimately, for me, it's about telling CEOs of digital marketing agency owners that they can book more sales calls on LinkedIn alone, and consistently trying to drive home misconceptions that they have about using LinkedIn to try and actually get client acquisition from. Then middle of the funnel, then you're talking, it's more solution aware. So these guys are aware of the problem that they have, but they're kind of looking for a solution, or a good solution at least. So this is kind of where you're giving away your expertise and your tips. For me, a lot of my middle of the funnel content that I post on my LinkedIn profile would be about some of the outreach scripts that I use that have been really effective, or about how I structure my posts, or some interview questions that I ask. It's just kind of basically giving away your knowledge and building up your brand as an expertise. And then the bottom of the funnel content then is around client testimonials. It's around case studies. It's around social proof. It's basically writing content about people you've worked with and the success you've had, and just showing, right, because the people at the bottom of the funnel, there's only very few of them compared to the top of the funnel, but these guys are ready to buy. Like, they are looking for a solution. Indeed. And they just need something, a bit of proof to get them over the line in terms of
I'm curious, Jerry, I suppose when you say funnel there, just to kind of be clear, I'm assuming this is what you mean. I guess you're posting the content on LinkedIn, so you don't have to. See, I suppose when I say funnel, because of my age, I had to set up each aspect of the funnel. So obviously the content that went out, that was on the top of the funnel, the awareness content, had anyone clicked on that or interacted it led them to content 2. So you wouldn't see content 2 unless you saw content 1 and moved down the funnel. And then obviously if you interacted with content 2, or I sent you to, so the kind of building of those ecosystems from casting the large net all the way down to closing a sale were funnels, and you had to kind of build this quite large, complex ecosystem of digital marketing. Just to be pedantic, I'm assuming in LinkedIn, you are actually just posting the content which fits into these three buckets. And the LinkedIn algorithm almost helps you where it'll do it for you. It'll show the more awareness content to who might want it. And then if they interacted with it, LinkedIn will probably then show them phase 2 and phase 3. Is that kind of what happens?
Yeah, in an ideal world, that's what should happen. So that would be the idea. If you're just doing content alone, that's why I would always recommend to people that are interested in writing their own content, 3 posts a week, 1 top of the funnel, 1 middle of the funnel, 1 bottom of the funnel. That will kind of create a natural funnel of content for people who
I get you.
also come onto your page as well. So if someone comes onto your page that fits your ideal customer profile, they'll be able to read, the first 3 content pieces that they see will be the different elements of the funnel. That's the one way, and that's kind of the organic way of hoping LinkedIn will show it to the right people. Of course, you can't fully rely on that. You need to go about doing it as well. So another kind of more strategic and outreach way of utilizing the funnel and the content system is that obviously the top of the funnel content is going to attract the most amount of people because it's awareness, and a lot of these people might not fit into your ICP, but the majority of your audience are going to see this post. So on a Monday, if you post your top of the funnel content, what I like to do, and this works better with clients who have much of a large following, I'll literally go into people who like the content and I'll see, and then I'll funnel these people into my CRM and I'll do some kind of analysis on them, and then I'll see if they fit the description, and then maybe a week or 2 later, then I might hit them a message in the inbox and I'll say, look, just written a post that you might find interesting, and then I'll send them on the middle of the funnel content post that I wrote last week. Or likewise, if I'm looking at the likes and engagements and comments on a middle of the funnel piece of content and I see someone who I feel is ready for a solution or is actively ready to move on to the next part of the funnel, which is the bottom of the funnel content, then I'll send them, maybe a case study, or I might send them a lead magnet or just something that'll help kind of breach the trust. So there's the outreach led side of the funnel too, where you can actually go in, and it's a bit more bitty, it takes a bit more time, but in the long run it does huge positives for it.
Fantastic. That's a great tip. So hopefully, yes, I mean, it's we can overthink this stuff, but I mean, if someone's interacting, get in there and, you have to do the work. But of course, if you're getting leads at this level, one lead can obviously, they're large contracts, I'm assuming, for these kind of larger companies. Fantastic.
They're the best leads. The people that engage with your content are going to be the best leads. It's just, what I would recommend is just play it casual, play it cool. One bad message or one overeager message could potentially ruin a really good partnership or a really good lead. So just play it casual, offer value all the time. Try not to come across as someone who is looking for something. Try to come across as someone who's actually willing to give away before you actually look.
Do you ever get a bit of pushback on terms of, people getting nervous that you're taking over their LinkedIn and how you'll speak on their behalf in terms of tone or personality? Like, how do you overcome that fear of theirs that you're like, what if this guy says the wrong thing and, he could ruin my career with one off mark? So do you ever get pushback, and have you ever had clients that are like, I'm not comfortable, I'm too scared to give you access?
You do at the start. Now it's weird. There's definitely a culture shift between, I have clients in Ireland who I do this with, and then my clients in America. Generally, my clients in the States are a lot more open to it, and they've heard of ghostwriting, and the conversation or any apprehensions that they might have are an awful lot easier to overcome. A lot of it is ultimately trust at the start, and I'm very transparent with them. They see everything that goes up before it goes up, and they approve it, and they can work on it. So nothing goes up without them actually seeing it and approving it. Now some ghostwriters don't do that. They just say, I'm just going to post, you just have to kind of follow my lead. I don't really like doing that, because I feel, like you said, one bad post could ruin trust in a relationship, and once the trust is gone in what I do, you're screwed. That's basically that client over. Just
out of curiosity, how do you send them the post? What software do you use, or do you email them, or how do you just keep it simple?
Use Notion. Set up a content calendar in Notion, so it's really good. They can come in, they can edit, they can review, and then they can move it across to ready to approve.
Fantastic.
So it's really, really simple. Now, my client in Ireland, I'm working with a client, an agency owner in Ireland, and it was an awful lot harder sell because Irish people are a bit more apprehensive to it. They don't want to be seen to be putting themselves out there, posting content and engaging. Oh, Jesus, what'll everyone think of me kind of stuff. What are you going to do on my LinkedIn? Are you going to be, posting random messages to people? So that could take a while. And, I would say that it's ongoing all the time. He tells me like, oh, Jesus, like I don't even look at half the things you do because I don't really want to. I'm so embarrassed. But, as long as you can show a quantifiable result in terms of actually leads, they get over it.
And I fall into that camp. I've been in this game for a long time and I've never really liked social media. I mean, it's hilarious. I used to run a social media management firm and I never really had a profile myself.
Why so?
I mean, pretty much I could give a deeper answer if I wanted to, but I think it's just as simple as that. Just that Irishness of just wanting to put yourself out there and go live. And I've done it now and again in different, okay, I'll try and do it this time and I might do a few weeks, but I don't know, I guess the embarrassment just grows a little bit and eventually you fall off. And I don't think you ever get past that.
Never.
As in you need to do 50 videos, 100 videos till maybe you just really just starts becoming second nature. Maybe speaking in public's the same, one or two is not going to do it. I think until you do so many, standing on a stage but I'm sure, the 30th time you're going out into an audience, you're still pretty nervous. So like, I think it takes a long time before you're like, it doesn't bother me anymore. I've never got there.
It's funny, you have to develop a real kind of, right, laser focus, laser vision, just forget about all the people that are going to be onto you. Like a lot of my friends have actually blocked me on LinkedIn or removed me as friends because they're like, you are so annoying on LinkedIn. I am so sick of seeing you every single day. And, they take the piss out of me when we're out for pints, and the lads at football take the piss out of me as well. But something, you just, as I always say to them, like, this is what I do to make money as I tell to telling my prospects. It's either, worry about what people think of you or start generating more revenue for your business.
And I can't believe we're at AI now. It's funny, I made one post there recently on LinkedIn myself, because for me, I think the part I struggle with is, I guess maybe you could say originality, where any aspect of how I would help a client has been done to death. I mean, I learned all this stuff from a foundational level a long time ago. But they're all still the same. So to go on and be like, these are reasons you should use SEO, lead magnets, web design, sales, copywriting, social media marketing. I mean, Google ads. I mean, you can run through the basic marketing touch points of how to build a company, but how to say anything new that, or even just to go into ChatGPT and you just go, this is what I've written. Can you just tidy it up? And then obviously it just gives you it almost in a better way. And then you're like, right, am I now about to read this, what ChatGPT wrote? And, so I was never able to give advice because it seems anyone could. And yet, if you get me going in the pub, I'm marketing is as complex as to build a business is almost impossible in a sense, if that makes sense. To most businesses fail. To get a business from idea to success is a highly complex thing to do. And it's all getting all these touch points correct. And yet, how to put that up on content in a post, my mind explodes, and I don't know how to succinctly make one post to offer one piece of advice, seen as the one piece seems so small.
Yeah, well, you just have a case of imposter syndrome, I think.
Isn't that and everyone has it,
that's what I know. And like, we literally talked 5 minutes ago about the conversations I have with my clients about getting the content out of them. They all think they don't have anything to add. That who would listen to me? Sure, I've no stories to tell, and as it happens, they actually do. And it's about, authenticity is huge now, and like that's, I know people are going to hear this and they'll be like, oh, what does that? What do you mean being authentic? Sure, that's so hollow. Like that's some sort of bullshit. Anyone can say that. But what I always say to people is, yes, use AI to help you write, use AI to help you generate ideas, but just bring a bit of authenticity to it, and that means put your story in it, put your life experience within the AI generated content. If you curse in real life, don't be afraid to curse in your writing on LinkedIn. That to me, if I see someone cursing on LinkedIn, I automatically know straight away, okay, they've actually gone and written this post. AI hasn't written this post. So that, I actually think they're a bit more credible. And I find that it represents their voice a bit more. I feel like I know this person a bit more, whether he's cursing or not. Now, some people might see it and be like, I don't like this person, he's cursing. But that's to me is an authentic brand if someone's actually willing to go out there and do that. So, just little subtle changes to writing such as that can just add that bit of authenticity that people are looking for and people crave.
That's an interesting point. I've never thought about that, where I wonder, would cursing in writing come back slightly just to, how do you quickly inform someone at a glance when it comes to copy that I wrote it? That's a hack. If you take a perfectly worded ChatGPT sentence and throw a curse word in there.
Yeah. Now I don't recommend going full.
That's fine.
Father Jack on it and all that.
It's an interesting take. Okay, well, one more thing I wanted to ask you about was, and sorry for running over a little bit, Chair, but it's very interesting stuff. Obviously, the service you provide, the content creation and the lead generation aspect of it, the kind of outreach stuff, and then you're building their brand, you're taking over their kind of personal branding as well. I come from a kind of a branding background. So would you say that the branding aspect, are they 50-50, or in the sense that if you don't build their brand, the lead or the outreach almost won't land because it's if someone comes back to them and they haven't got that trust or authentic kind of, they haven't created a personal brand themselves, they won't close. And then just to kind of ask the same question in a different way, but to really nail it home, that like you wouldn't be able to close, like the lead magnet, as you said, is almost just a way to reach out to people. And it's actually the personal brand that closes the sale, because the lead magnet isn't some wow element that people are like, oh my God, this is amazing. It's more just proof of like, this person knows what they're talking about. And then when they go and check out that person's profile or look into them, they feel comfortable that they're like, okay, this personal brand is resonating with me. So just talk to like the relationship between building their personal brand and then the kind of marketing aspect of it.
Yeah. So what I would say is that, the building the personal brand is it's a compounding effect over time. Anyone who's familiar with SEO knows that you're not going to get a huge instant results, but if you get your foundations right at the start and you do it consistently over a period of time, then you will start yielding long-term results. That's the part of the personal brand. It is very important to be doing it with your outreach and doing it with the lead magnets, but I wouldn't say it's absolutely essential either. You can definitely sign clients and get leads using just lead magnets and outreach and have a no personal brand, because there are people who don't want to be a creator on LinkedIn and they don't want to write content and they don't want to be seen as a person who's plaguing everyone on their feeds every single day. And that's absolutely fine. That just means you got to spend that bit more time creating very personalized and hyper-focused lead magnets. So if you're going after, for example, SEO agencies, or say, for example, you're going after, a B2B SaaS company in the UK, you create a hyper-focused lead magnet for B2B SaaS companies in the UK that will help them do this. Avoid being very general and just go after that sector and go hard on it and give them as much quality as you possibly want. It also depends on the people you're going after. Certain types of people will have no interest. Certain types of ICP will have absolutely no interest in personal branding or no interest in content. They just want a very quick result and they want to know that you can actually provide them a solution to do that. So in short, yes, it helps. Definitely, it makes the outreach a lot easier. It compounds over time, but it's not absolutely essential. You can still do your lead magnet, you can still do your outreach without having to be a creator or an influencer, if you like, on LinkedIn as well.
Okay, fantastic. Have you any kind of recent conversations with your own customers that kind of have just stood out? So in the first few clients you've had, is there anything unusual or anything that's kind of been strange in sort of working with them that's come across?
What would I kind of say? I did. It's funny actually. So one of my clients he's a CEO of a Microsoft SQL Server performance tuning company. I have absolutely no idea the first thing about Microsoft SQL performance tuning, and it was a referral client who I got from a guy I work with in Miami, Florida, conversion rate optimization agency, and he is a very outgoing, very smart entrepreneur. He's a keynote speaker that's been all around the world, and he referred me to this client. And I remember saying to him, like, Jesus, I don't know if I'm going to be able to work with this guy because I haven't a clue about it, and I decided to take a gamble on it. And this guy is from Lithuania originally, but has lived in America most of his life, and it's been the best success we've had ever from a content point of view. And because I got exposed to a world that I did not know exists on LinkedIn. This Microsoft SQL community and this world is huge, and it has such an impact on companies. Like if a SQL server goes down in a healthcare company, you're talking thousands, maybe millions over the course of a week if it doesn't work. So it's this service that is in such need, and it just goes very niche and very quiet and under the radar, but there's an unbelievably big and respected community there, and we've actually kind of built out a really, really good brand for him. So in essence, the kind of story is that I suppose, take the risk and jump into something that you're not comfortable with. It easily could have gone the other way as well.
Do you think it was almost a strength in a weird way that because you didn't know anything about what you're trying to write about, that you were able to come from it from a kind of, can you explain this to me in basic terms? Because I'm assuming everyone within the industry gets it, but then anyone on the fringes is almost like, I don't know what you're saying at all. Did that help a little bit, that you're like, okay, try and explain it to me in a way that I grasp it so that I can tell the world about it?
Well, what I think, and this is, I've had this conversation with my client, you know, the SQL servers, the guy that do SQL servers, senior DBAs, database analysts, and, you know, CTOs and CIOs, you know, they're very nerdy and they're very techie, and not a lot of them can write,
yes,
or create content. So, and a lot of them, there is, you know, a good community of people on LinkedIn, techie and nerdy people that are writing and are creating content, but it's you know, you can tell they're not writers. Exactly. So I've kind of come in from a creative and a writing perspective, and I've been able to take all his knowledge and put it into a structure, and people are reading it because I think it's easy to consume. There's a good storytelling aspect to it, and it's just an awful lot, I suppose, more professional than the techie guys, because that's absolutely understandable. Writing is not their game. So I think I've somehow brought like a, you know, maybe a more human element to a very particular and nerdy kind of niche in Microsoft SQL Server.
Well, it's a great example to end it on, in the sense that, like, yes, writing and storytelling, it's still as key. I actually get reminded of one of the large clients that I work for in the UK. They manufacture lifeboats for the oil and gas industry. So again, just an incredibly niche, large industry, and one that you'd never hear from day to day. And the owner, or the head of the UK region back in his day, was like, well, obviously we'll just get the engineers to sell these things, because no one's going to be able to explain anything about what we do other than the engineers. George, you know, because when I was coming on board years later, obviously he was like, yeah, we have to get you annoying salespeople in here, because I learned the hard way that the guys that know everything about what we're doing, and I put them in front of rooms back in the day, and they just could not get the words out. They couldn't explain you know, or sell the products and services that they themselves build. Like they're the backbone of the company, but that's just not their skill set, to be able to go into a room in another country and then explain and sell the services they were providing. And George was like, what are you doing, man? You built the damn thing. Why can't you just say it in normal English? You know, nerves, salesmanship, you know, as I said, just bringing together the story or words, selling it in a different way, talking about obviously pain points or emotional aspects of it, as opposed to the inner workings of a winch in my case. And yeah. So, you know, then they pivoted and they got in, you know, sales guys that obviously I kind of don't know what you're doing, but it's my job to figure it out, and then, you know, figure out the problems of the customer, as opposed to, I don't need to really know the inner workings of a lifeboat or an oil rig, you know, kind of.
100%. And it's funny, my other client, Marty, who's the president of a conversion rate optimization agency, the guy I mentioned, he always says, and they've worked with over 2,100 clients across the world, you know, Google, American Express, Costco, Nestle, and their websites. And some of the stuff he always says particularly about your website and around your messaging, someone should be able to land on your website and they should be instantly able to tell what you do. So he said, if you build your website, show it to a friend, and they should be able to tell you within 10 seconds what it is you do. And if they can't do that, then you're wrong. And he said they run into an awful lot of problem where, you know, CEOs and CMOs build their own websites and they kind of get completely engulfed in like this big flashy website and all these fancy things here and there, and it turns out to be absolutely, you know, just a ball of confusion. And it can be a really difficult conversation to tell these people who've put all this time and effort into their website that this is actually shit. It's not going to convert. So he says there's 3 questions that your user asks. Anyone who lands on a website subconsciously asks themselves 3 questions. Number 1 is, am I in the right place? So straight away they need to know, is what you're selling going to help them? Number 2 is, how do I feel about this site? So is it a trustworthy site? Is there trust symbols? You know, do I like the look of it? Do I feel right? And then number 3 is, what do I do next? So where do I go to either make a conversion, be it a sale, a download, fill out a contact form, or whatever? And if you can answer those 3 questions very, very quickly, then you'll actually get more conversions on your website.
100%, and a fantastic tip as well, Joe. Yeah, I use it's a kind of an old Story brand. They're a huge kind of company in America. That's, he you know, Donald Miller, I think is his name. And like, indeed, like the squirrel brain, you land on a site, people don't even read them, they just scan them. And yeah, they've kind of made a subconscious decision before they've even really read anything. What do you do? Can I work with you? And as you said, you kind of mentioned it there nicely. nicely, it's like a feeling. Do I trust the site? Do I just get a vibe? So is it just a bit jarring or a bit off? And that alone could almost, maybe you have landed on the right site and it just doesn't look great. It doesn't have to be the most amazing looking site in the world, but just professional or credible, or just on point to whatever industry you're in. So 100%. And I, unfortunately, and this is why, again, my little post of a few weeks ago, like we're all the way up to now AI. And I think you could line up every website in Ireland and I'd say 90% of them still fail these basic aspects. SEO, social media, lead magnets, websites. They're old now. They've been around a long time, and most businesses still just don't have the basics. Even as you said, SEO, I mean, in the local world of Ireland, just to be looking for your local business, a gym or a restaurant. If I land in Galway and I type in, a barber, best restaurant, best French restaurant in Galway, or, a gym. A lot of them, they just don't have their profiles filled out. Their opening hours will be wrong. Their websites won't be up to date. And you just don't know how much money they're leaving on the table by just not having the bare bones, the basics, never mind basics, way up to your level of like lead generation. Yeah. It is. We're still kind of poor on that. And now we're selling AI and it's like, oh, guys, there's a lot of foundational steps there you can get right before you go all the way up to this. But Ger, fantastic. My last question, I suppose, if you were to take your hat off of the service you provide in building the company yourself as a business owner, what was the challenges you found just building your own business from scratch yourself? Was there any challenges you faced there?
God, every day, Paul, is a challenge.
Yeah.
To be honest, you know yourself. It's just it's on full time. It's the first thing I think of when I wake up in the morning. It's the last thing I think of before I go to bed at night. And you wear all the hats. You're the sales guy, the marketing guy, the finance guy, everything. It is very rewarding. I do like a good challenge. So yeah, you learn every day, and you learn a lot about yourself. Some days when you were working for other companies, you could go in, you could turn up and do absolutely nothing for the day. You just can't do that anymore. You just don't get away because you have to ultimately make up the work the other side. So you kind of you really start to understand whether you actually really want to do this or not. The conversations you kind of have with yourself on a weekly basis. So it's definitely not as romantic as what people make it out to be, but it's
indeed it's I hear it's the difference between the kind of amateur and pro is just that discipline. I've kind of been able to be consistent. It can be quite cruel and indeed very, very challenging. What's one takeaway, sorry Joe, you'd love listeners to just take away from this episode in what you're kind of getting out there?
I just tell people, if you have a B2B business and you want to try and stand out and come up with a new way of actually generating business, look at LinkedIn, start posting content, and just don't be afraid of what people think about you. Just write that post, forget about it, and just do it on a consistent basis. And just take it nice and slow, because I guarantee people there will be huge reward for this over time if they can just commit to it. So it's just baby steps, get used to it, get comfortable with it, and get at it.
Ger, fantastic. And how do people find you if they want to get in touch with you? I'm assuming we know the answer. Right?
Yeah, look me up on LinkedIn, Ger Flanagan, and you'll get me on that most times.
Amazing. Ger, thank you very much. That was fantastic. And I'll be on to you about all this stuff because I think it's fantastic. So I'll chat to you soon.
Thanks, Paul. Delighted to be on.